Welcome to Confessions of a Rock and Roll Cameraman Podcast Episode 2, Medley of the 80s. I'm your gnarly host, Pat Canavan, in conversation with rock and roll cameraman Tony Wannamaker.
I feel so underdressed, Pat. I love your lid. You look like the new guitarist for Kiss, but give me a sec, folks. While we're hot, so the requisite mullet, because we are going into the 80s. And now I transform my lovelies into Nigel, the drummer. Really.
Wait a minute, that's not your real hair.
No, man. No, and I miss having this. But anyways, there we go. All right, so.
This is my real hair, but for the other episodes, I put on a short wig. So I just want to let you know that. Now, Confessions of a Rock and Roll Cameraman.
Yeah, man.
Say it out loud. Confessions of a Rock and Roll Cameraman. Now, how are you going to get that? On the Twitter, on TikTok, on Facebook, on Instagram, WhatsApp, on Pinterest. Where are you going to get that? You can't. But what we want you to do is subscribe to the mailing list on our website. And the way to get to the website really quickly is to go to CORNRC, Confessions of a Rock and Roll Cameraman.com, CORNRC.com. So here we go. Ready? Say it with me. CORNRC.com, Confessions of a Rock and Roll Cameraman.
Oh, wow, right there.
.com.
That's us, right there.
All right. So
please
thanks.
have a look.
Yeah. So when you get a chance, come to our website, subscribe to the mailing list or sign up to the mailing list. We're going to send you out a copy of Medley of the 80s, man. And the theme song. We're going to send you an MP3 of the theme song. So don't delay. Do it now. And let's get into it. Let's get into it. So, Tony, the 1980s.
I'm working around the hair, but we're good.
Yeah, man. Well,
I love it. I get an impression more of Kiss, but we're right. Medleys of the 80s.
So let's talk about the 80s.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the vibe of the 80s, the feel of the 80s.
Well, we talked earlier a little bit about, this new video culture, this thing.
Yeah.
Music videos, right?
Sure.
And I would argue that there were a couple of key figures that really, to me, sort of stand out and are emblematic, if you will, of the 80s. And that is Cyndi Lauper, Billy Idol, Duran Duran, The Clash, Flock of Seagulls, and Madonna, for example. And I kind of felt that they represented, as if you will, the zeitgeist of the 80s. They were sort of the glee club, if you will. But they're really representational of those. And we can kind of break it down why they meant so much to the 80s. I think that was a good group.
Because it kept the walls decorated of the kids'
well, because
of our bedrooms?
They were representational. For example, Cyndi Lauper and Madonna. They were both independent, free-spirited women with a really interesting, visual appeal, but they had little differences. Cyndi Lauper was really the first new wave feminist. She was coming out and supporting her song. Really suggested an empowerment for young women.
Well, wait a minute. Girls just want to have fun? Empowerment? What are you talking about?
Exactly. You would think, well, that's a kind of a fluffy song. There's not a lot of substance in it, right?
Right.
However,
wasn't it all about the 80s?
Well, there's some of that. And I think you could argue that Madonna's videos represented that, like a virgin touching for the very first time.
Right,
and
right.
that really caused an outcry because, she was the rebellious one, if you will. And she was explicit and appealing. However, this was a time, it was during presidency of Ronald Reagan. And that time, it was a very conservative world, right?
Yeah.
And there was, they called part of the party the Reagan Democrats. So they were really very conservative. So a couple of things at that time. Madonna's come out being explicit about girl power, actually teasing folks with belt buckles, saying boy toy. Plenty of innuendo in that. But she was challenging everybody. Cyndi Lauper was challenging. As actually last month, she was the first female artist to have 1 billion views on YouTube. That's amazing for the song Girls Just Want to Have Fun.
Wow.
And you might think that is sort of a vapid kind of song, but really, you know, listen to her argument to defend it. In 2014, Cyndi Lauper said this to the Atlantic magazine.
Okay.
She said, defending her vision of the song, of course, and she said, quote, "It doesn't mean that girls just want to fuck. It means girls just want to have the same damn experience as any man could have." Now think about it. That's early 80s. And for a lot of the young women, especially our new Go-Go's staff, the 3 young ladies working on cameras,
Sure.
This was novel. This was a new thing. We're pushing vanguard here.
Yeah.
So she kind of did it, and she, meaning Cyndi Lauper, did it for a sort of a feminist movement. I think it was really camouflage, but it was there.
Yeah.
And Madonna was overt and out there and said she's going to push boundaries and challenge people. And I think that was exciting. So, you know, there's substance in the material. It wasn't vapid. It wasn't banal.
Right.
It really had meaning.
Well, that's what's interesting, because the feel of the 80s was very, it was somewhat repressed awakening. It was almost compressed awakening. Not quite what the 60s was,
Yeah.
which became sort of an overt
Well,
experience, but the 80s were more of like a techno, to me, because I was growing up then.
Yeah.
I was contributing artistically then.
Yeah.
So like the 80s to me was like, almost like a pressure cooker.
Yeah.
Almost the next level of freedom. And the next level of freedom was sexual.
Yep.
And awakening, certainly for women, and more, not like the 60s awakening for women, but the 80s awakening for women was a bit more
and
empowered.
the music video, Pat, provided people a new type of way to present themselves. So when you look at certain characters, and we have a big fan here filming right now of Duran Duran, and Trina's a huge fan. And what was unique about them, they kind of played on the Brian Epstein formula, right? Where they had suave, current, contemporary-looking guys wearing what was indicative of the time. And the Beatles looked pretty sharp when they first came out. All coordinated, all the same. Kind of safe for their daughters to listen to, as opposed, for example, the Rolling Stones. So Duran Duran came out, and it's an interesting story. We were at the original 99 Queen Street West building. It was early days, just before we launched Much Music, Pat. So 1983, we get a call that...
So wait a minute. So it's 1983. You're at 99 Queen Street East.
That's correct.
And you're using the show The New Music, I guess.
We're in that transition phase. We're just about to become the newly minted Much Music national music station.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Music station. And so we get the word that we're going to get 2 of the players. We're going to get Nick Rhodes, who was the keyboardist and founder of Duran Duran, and John Taylor, which was an archetype of a Hollywood movie lead.
Oh yeah,
right?
he was the guy.
He was a heartthrob in as much as the lead of Aha was. I mean, these people, they had the right look, and this was a medium to exploit that look. It was perfect. Timing was great. So here we are in the little 99 Queen Street West building, and we have 2 security guards, right? We got a little fella, Jimmy, and Jimmy's too old, a little too big, a little too slow, but he's Uncle Jimmy, and we love him. He's a great guy. He heart size of Manhattan. What can you say? I love Jimmy. And then Neil looked like he was with 3 Dog Night, and he had a mustache, porn mustache, and it was amazing. So I set that up because we take Duran Duran, Pat, upstairs to the 4th floor, and we had just punched a hole into the building adjacent to us because we were going to commandeer that space and make that the new Much Music world headquarters. It's going to be the studio. And so I punched the hole, took the band in, did the interview. Fantastic. Great guys. Girls are cooing, going nuts over John Taylor. They can't get enough of this guy, right? You know, he's the cock of the walk today. And so they make their way through the building down to Brad Giffen's radio booth, which was a closet, and they shot his program. And so we had them hustle at the back. But before they went, we had wrongs. I've never seen this. It was the first time. It was like my experience of a Richard Lester movie, Hard Day's Night. Wow. The Beatles in black and white pandemonium. Beatlemania, man. And we had a little window. I didn't know what was going on, but I didn't know we were going to be overwhelmed. This is when, certainly personally, I came to realization the impact we were having on the nation. I had no idea, you know, and love my hair. And I look outside, and there's throngs of people, and we're shutting down the TTC now. And now there's thousands of people outside. So to mitigate this problem we could have with a large crowd, Duran Duran were willing to go up and stick their heads out the window and wave to them and appease them.
Okay.
And so we were almost overwhelmed, and we had two little security guys trying to guard the place. So they exited the back finally, and then everything at that point changed because we had to get real security. You had one little piece of a little glass door, one little lock, and we could have been overwhelmed if anybody actually knew. Right?
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's fascinating because really, when you think of the 80s, you don't think of like a mania. You don't think of like that overt running down the streets mania that you got in the 60s. Let's say.
Yes and no. It was interesting because when I talked to Cyndi Lauper, for example, we did at the Masonic Temple, which later became the headquarters for MTV too in Canada.
Oh, right, yeah.
Cyndi was interesting, Pat. She had beautiful shock of this bright red hair, a little bit orange, I thought.
Oh, yeah.
And or was it orange with red? I'm not sure, but it was loud and proud. And she had a little bit of a Queen's accent, so a little nasally when she talked, but she's really full of life, And she was cute, and it was pretty straightforward. It was just really great seeing her with a Queen's accent fight Kim Clark Champness, who was a VJ, and he had a British accent. So they were having a fight of the accents. Some were dropping E's and some were sustaining E's, and I didn't really understand it, but to me, it was good fun. 10 years later, 10 feet from where I was doing Cyndi Lauper, I'm shooting now the new cadre of MTV stars. And one of those guys was a young guy called Dan Levy.
Oh.
And he went on to do a little show later called Schitt's Creek. Fantastic. Lovely guy to work with, I might add. And I've worked with comedians. His dad, Eugene Levy, knew I was a mark and used to kill me all the time. And he had to put the camera down because I couldn't hold it anymore. He had me laughing so bad. And the only other person to do that to me was Robin Williams. He did that to me backstage in Masonic Temple, Massey Hall. And when he started into me, I fell apart. And really late when I walked away, there was a puddle with my name on it.
Wow.
Puddle of joy.
Puddle of joy. Tears of laughter in the ground. Well, that's great. So Duran Duran, awesome band, big. But you also, like, you must have been with other bands. What about, like, say, The Clash? Did you ever meet up with The Clash?
And thank you for asking. The Clash was one of my first significant interview with the new music.
Yeah.
First time I was really working with a big band. Pardon me. And what was unique was at the Cassini Grandstand. That's where all the big shows were held, late 70s, early 80s. Mm-hmm. It was held in the Cassini Grandstand. It was the venue that was held in the late 70s, throughout the 80s, and a little bit of the 90s.
Oh, yeah, rock. I was there many times.
Pat, first time I started to learn, folks, what a rider was. And when they wanted to do this interview, they said, yeah, we'll do the interview. Reluctantly, they never do interviews. So what they did was they said, we have to have a Porsche. My boss, John Martin, who finds anything, managed to find a silver Porsche. We put a silver Porsche in the frame. They have that. I'm looking at the Cassini band shell in the background, so I got it set up. And then the boys go, yeah, man, let's finally do the interview. So when they do the interview, they line up, and you, my friend, are the camera, and they line up like this, back to back. So I have Joe Strummer, lead singer, and Mick, right, Jones, the other guitar player, and they're like this. And in the middle of it, the Porsche. And I thought, I got the genius in that. It was incredible because it was spontaneous and it was essentially a rock and roll interview. And it worked. Right. And John Martin got more hits on that interview because it's so unorthodox than we would have if we did a standard contemporary type of.
Right.
It was amazing to see it. And I just, at that point, I understood the genius in what John Martin was doing. Huh. It crystallized in my head. But there's other people, Pat, that I work with. And you mentioned earlier Billy Idol, I think. Yeah,
let's talk about Billy. Sure.
Billy Idol, I was a huge fan. I mean, this guy comes out of a band Generation X. He kind of was the post-punk era, if you will. And everybody's familiar. A lot of folks are familiar with the song White Wedding, for example. Yeah. Earlier than that, you might have heard Dancing with Myself. Great hit.
Yeah.
But my 9 to 5, matching folks, is working with rock stars and shooting music concerts. So you're always looking to be 90%, 95%, but sometimes I'm not on my game. And I showed up at A&A Records on Yonge Street at a record promotion for Billy Idol.
Okay, so all right, let's just set the mood here. Is Billy Idol's big?
Yep. Oh yeah.
And so there's a crowd.
Yep.
And it's probably summertime because it's rock and roll and it's whatnot.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So it's hot and sunny, and is this weekend after hours kind of thing for you? Is this not regular for you?
Well, you're right, and I recall it was a weekend event that happened because I was a little pissy. I had shown up. Maybe I was late. I thought it was because it was hot and humid that day. But it was really, I think, because I was working the weekend. I was kind of pissed I had to do the Saturday, right? Or Saturday or the Sunday. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But anyways, I show up in A&A Records, and it's cool because, hey, man, you went to a retail store to buy records. It was kind of neat. And that was right beside Sam's. So it was a real interesting little cloister of a record store. So you had A&A Records, Sam the Record Man, and across the street, Sunrise. So anyways, I made my way down to an A&A's with my wife. My wife is my Yoko Ono. She's always with me. So she shows up. Rhonda is big and pregnant, man. She's carrying one of our babies. So she's got, dare I say, baby melons, right? She's big bump, big melons. She's there. Well, that attracts the attention of Billy Idol. I find that amazing because there was all kinds of punk princesses there with plunging tops, right?
Right.
And Billy signed me. And Billy just didn't want to stay pat at the dais. He got up from the table. And he's out there and he's charging the sign. He's got a pen in hand and gone.
All you can eat buffet.
Pretty much. Buffet. I love it. 100%. So I come in after a while because I got tons of B-roll and I see him trying to sign my wife's boobs. I'm offended. I'm not in a good mood. I'm not being professional.
Okay.
I call out to him. Hey, fuck, what are you doing, man? And not polite, not good.
Nice day for a white melon.
No, it wasn't. And Billy, I owe you an apology. And by the way, congratulations on the birth of one of your grandchildren. It's pretty cool. Just last year. He's a proud grandpa.
Wow, Billy Idol,
man.
a grandpa.
So we're close to fisticuffs. Gladly, nothing transpired. And his manager jumped in between us. And he still signed an autograph for us. And so he didn't sign my wife's boobs because I wouldn't let him. But anyways, I go to sign this. It's totally illegible. You can't really get it. But right there's Billy Idol. This is Rhonda, right? And I mentioned another fella, if I may segue. At the back here, look at that. And this was a huge album right here. Culture Club, Color by Numbers. It's there's Boy George there. Right? He signed that for me, George O'Dowd. Right? I'm sorry.
So yeah, you meant Boy George. Probably when it was still the new music. It wasn't quite much music yet.
No, you're right. As a matter of fact, sorry. Yeah, I can go right back to you. Oh, they don't work like they used to. Yeah, so no, I had a chance of meeting him in '83, and it was really great because he had an album out called Color by Numbers, and it was shooting through the roof.
Oh yeah, it was huge.
And what was fascinating about him was he really played on this idea of androgyny. It was amazing at the time to see somebody dressed in drag throughout the day. It's something you didn't often see. And it was deliberate on George O'Dowd's behalf, a.k.a. Boy George.
Right.
Because at that time, dare I say, homosexuality was completely taboo in the 80s.
Oh, yeah. No, I totally remember. Like in high school, anything that sort of smacked of that was kind of like, oh, that's a bit weird. And then other people would say, well, that's just because they want the publicity. But really... You know,
no, he was great, and he was really leading the way, you know, to claim that voice. I worked at New Music. We were really an equal opportunity employer. We were open to all kinds of artist guys. We were crazy, and it made sense. So it was really great to see what he did. As a matter of fact, Pat, he was nominated in '84. You know, Much started for a Juno Award. Right, as well as winning the Grammys. But I got to tell you when he won an award for the Grammys. For the best new music video, and in Canada, he won International Album of the Year. Yeah. He said, "quote via this on the satellite." I love it. Quote. He said, "Thanks, America. You've got style, you've got taste, and you know a good drag queen when you see one."
Wow.
Yeah. Awesome.
So you know it's amazing because this is the crossroads of pop culture, and this is an example of planting a seed of pop culture then. Yeah. And now look at how the world has embraced a shadowy part of our sexuality and a shadowy part of the world that really existed. Yeah. But nobody wanted to, say anything about it.
To your point, Pat, a lot of times when we're young listening to music, I didn't see those themes. I heard a great melody. I heard something inspired with a little bit of reggae, calypsonian in it, right? Sure. I understood those threads. I liked West Indian music. And so when I heard, Do You Really Want to Hurt Me? I thought, what a lovely song. I had no idea. And you start seeing it, and I just thought, wow, great marketing. I love the colors. I like what he represented for the 80s. Little did I know then, and I know a lot now, that he was really hitting us with a message. And as a matter of fact, Pat, I met him years later and saw a different side of him, which is great. I saw him as George O'Dowd. I was on a flight crossing the pond, heading my way to London with Ed Mirvish. Honest Ed, there he
Wow.
was, and he owned the Old Vic Theatre in the London's West End, which is their theatre district.
Yeah.
And I flew over there with he and his wife and Kim Clark Chamness, and went to see the opening of Hair for his new theatre. Hair didn't do so well, but the after party was amazing. Went to the after party. I'm sitting beside Roger Daltrey, The Who, and allegedly the new James Bond, and it was really quite a thing because people were going, "It's the blonde James Bond, right?" And but it wasn't Daniel Craig. He was too young.
Right.
This was Sean Bean, and he ended up becoming 006 with Pierce Brosnan. Brosnan got the job. But anyhow, the after party. Too loud, too many people, pandemonium.
Right.
Perfect party to go to. I will walk in the door, Pat, and this guy comes and grabs me, right? Immediately sends me up to the DJ booth. Like, wow, I got drinks and cigar? This is crazy. I'm not even supposed to be smoking here. I'm going to, right?
Sweet.
That happened to be Boy George. I didn't recognize him, Pat, because he was bald at the time, right? Lovely guy, spun some music, bought drinks, told stories. The reason he called me over, man, he thought I was Midge Ure.
Midge Ure.
Midge Ure was the lead singer for the band Ultravox.
Okay.
You actually, if people go, I'm not sure.
Ultravox,
hardcore new wavers will get it. But if you've ever heard of Do They Know It's Christmas? A little song in 1986 that went through the roof. Midge Ure co-wrote that with a guy named Sir Bob Geldof.
Midge Ure?
Yeah, so he says, he looked like Midge Ure. And I thought, well, that's really great. Thanks, mate. And I knew him, and it was appreciative, but didn't really hit home until now. Another 6 years later, I'm at the Horseshoe Tavern. You know that place with the checkerboard floors?
Oh, yeah.
Gord Downey
I played there a couple of times myself.
You know it, man. You played there. And so I'm at the bar, and I'm scouting it for a music video. We've shot a lot of music videos there. And this guy is flabbergasted. He calls my attention. Anyways, in discussion, I find out, he goes, wow, you look like my boss. I go, your boss? Who's your boss? He goes, Midge Ure. I go, no way. So I told him about the Boy George story. And he says, well, you got to meet my boss. Come on down. I just poked myself in the eye. He says, come on down. So I went down into the basement of the Horseshoe Club. And I'm familiar with it. I shot Ronnie Wood's interview down there. It was kind of a cool place. Dark and dank, kind of foreboding. Rock and roll. Great. And there's my doppelganger. There's my lookalike. There's a lot of these gobsmack going, blah, 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 and it was pretty cool. I told him about the story. He went on to do his concert. I split. Awesome exchange with Boy George. Yeah, cool.
Terrific.
Yeah, man.
Well, that's the 80s.
But you forgot the most important thing, I think, when we talk about the videos at the time. The band Aha, I cite as the sort of the real seminal, the crux of the 80s. And that being, there was a fellow at the time, a director named Steve, and I got it right here, good old Steve Barron. And the reason I mentioned him, he did 2 videos at the time. He did the Aha video, which was a rotoscoping technique, which is basically drawing pencil sketches over film frames.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, very time consuming. And the other side, he did Dire Straits, right? And that Dire Straits song he did was using the first computer graphics.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody remembers that song, I Want My MTV. It should have been I Want My Much Music, but we'll live with that for now. Okay. But that was incredible because it did both of them at the time, and they really kind of set the tone. And that's really, and that for me was the mid 80s already, because I was in LA at the time, 85 at the Billboard Awards. And that's how fast the 80s was going by me. I had no idea. I really didn't benchmark it until middle of it. And I went, wow, this has been quick, because I was living the moment.
Wow. Yeah. So you were at the Billboard Awards in LA.
Yep, that's correct.
And you bumped into him, or you were introduced to him?
No, I love it. So here we got this huge trending director at the time, right?
Yeah.
And of course, we did the interview in the parking lot. Where'd you go? Right? Seemed to make sense.
Amazing.
But it worked. Yeah. And that was kind of my take on the 80s. And I look back, I go, amazing how quickly it went by. And I'm really blessed that I had a chance to be at the crossroads of a lot of these individuals.
Yeah. Well, certainly, like you see the planting of a consciousness and sexual revolution. Mm-hmm. You see the expansion of women in the industry.
Yep.
A much needed expansion of that in the industry. And yeah, it's phenomenal, all the things that happened. And this was still sort of new music time, not fully into your Much Music days quite yet.
No, I just got to take a quick call here. No, I'm kidding. Actually, my security code was 007 on this, right? Yeah.
Hello, operator. It's the past. I'd like to go back. Anyway, thanks for today. I mean,
man.
very informative. So this medley of the 80s, again, now you've written a parcel, so many pages.
Yes.
It talks about the time with Aha. It talks about Duran Duran, your time with Madonna, or your experience with Madonna.
Thank you.
Boy George. Yes. And if people come in and sign up to our mailing list, you're going to send that to them.
Yeah, and it's kind of an exciting giveaway. The book, as you know, Confessions of a Rock and Roll Cameraman, selected essays from the crossroads of pop culture.
Yeah.
And what we've done, and Pat's suggestion here, was that we're going to give away this essay. And it chronicles a period between 1982 to 2019. And it highlights, again, the medley of characters, if you will, that the Glee Club of the 80s that we talked about.
Yeah.
And boy,
You're not used to having long hair anymore, are you, buddy?
doesn't taste like it should. But yeah, and so I'll be really pleased to give this away. So yeah, do write in. You're going to dig this. And it's a sample of the 56 essays which compiled the book.
Awesome. Well, thanks for tuning in to episode 2 of Confessions of a Rock and Roll Cameraman podcast. And like us and subscribe to us. And we'll see you in the next episode.
Do I look like Nigel the drummer? Brian?
Oh, thanks. Anyway, that's it for me. I'm Pat Canavan.
I'm Tony Wannamaker.
Tony Wannamaker. And we'll see you next time.